The defense put on a show during day 5 of Buffalo Bills training camp, but the injuries continue to pile on.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, folks, welcome in. Day 5 of Bills camp is in the books. I had a chance to take in that practice from the sideline, and I have a lot to share with you. There's some players that are standing out that I think are a bit under the radar. We had some big-time standout plays. The injuries keep piling on, and that's where we start with Maxwell Hairston, who is the latest Buffalo Bill to get injured, and we don't know the status, but it doesn't look good. Of course, the Bills' first-round pick, Maxwell Hairston, a corner out of Kentucky. He had what Dane Jackson described as a non-contact freak slip-up during individual drills. The training staff came over to Hairston. They tested out his knee. He was eventually able to get up and walked off with the assistance of the trainer. I guess the good news there is that he wasn't carted off, but it certainly doesn't look encouraging. Taron Johnson said after practice that the team had a team prayer for Hairston. So we'll hold our breaths and we'll see what happens here, but it certainly looks like Hairston may have suffered a significant injury. And as I've said before, and I think many have said, it looks like Tre'Davious White is going to make this tough on Hairston to be the starter across from Christian Benford, but obviously, that becomes even more complicated for Hairston if he's not available, right? He's not going to be able to win the starting job if he can't perform and he can't be on the field. And so we'll wait and see what the diagnosis is here, but optically, it gives you plenty to be concerned about. Now, the other side of that is Tre'Davious White has had a really, really strong training camp. And even a healthy Hairston, I think, was going to have quite the battle to unseat Tre'Davious White opposite of Christian Benford. And I think the concerns with Tre'Davious White when the Bills signed him is that you just didn't really know exactly what to expect for a guy that, of course, had some great years in Buffalo, but his last 2 were full of injuries, right? Significant injuries, an Achilles and an ACL. And then he plays last season the first 4 games with the Ravens, or excuse me, with the Rams, and they said, thanks for everything. You can go try to find some other team. And then he goes to the Ravens and winds up having a role in their dime package. And he actually played reasonably well and gave you some hope that maybe he can fill a depth role for the Bills or some other team. But now he's in the driver's seat to be the starter across from Christian Benford. And look, Trey's had a good camp. There's no question about it. The technician that he's always been is showing up. He looks like he's fairly bursty. He's making plays on the ball. He's highly competitive. He's doing everything you would hope he can do, but the concern is this is a player that if he's the starter across from Christian Benford, you're talking about a 19-20 game run that the Bills are trying to go on this year. And he hasn't done that in a long time. So we'll see how calloused up he is. I mean, he looks good for now, but you know, what can he offer this team over the course of a 19-20 game run this season? I think, you know, we have a lot to find out. And obviously the concern with Hairston is significant. This is a first-round pick, and he might lose his entire rookie season. We'll see how that goes. But obviously not an encouraging development for Maxwell Hairston. So beyond Trey White, of course, the Bills do have Dane Jackson, who's a cerebral vet that started a lot of games for the Bills. Jamarcus Ingram is still part of this mix at outside corner. He's a player that obviously has kind of paved his way with some practice squad years and then being on the roster last year and filling in a number of roles defensively in the secondary, plus offering some special teams impact. And then Dorian Strong, who's a day 3 rookie. I like Dorian Strong, but it's, we have to be honest. He's a day 3 rookie. We have to keep our expectations appropriate there. So I think the Bills entering camp had corner as probably the most complete depth chart, right, top to bottom, but it changes fast, right? And now your prized first-round pick that had so much excitement, you're wondering what his availability is going to be, not only right now in camp, but, how long this is going to linger for. I thought it was a good day for the Bills defense overall. It was a practice where the emphasis was 3rd and longs and 2-minute drill. And I thought the Bills defense really won the day more than the offense, where the defense continues to showcase itself with a lot of the wrinkles that you would expect from Ryan Nielsen, a new member of this defensive coaching staff. And the Bills were dialing up the 5-man pressures like crazy, just like they have all camp long. And of course they're going to rush 4, and then they're sending a corner, like a slot corner usually, or a linebacker. And you're seeing a lot of disruption and a lot of chaos. This certainly looks like a defense that is not going to play on its heels. That's going to be very attack-oriented and force the issue. You can kind of get an idea for what they want to be defensively. And I thought today on the 3rd and longs and the 2-minute stuff, you really saw an aggressive style of defense that caused a lot of problems for the offense. And I thought you saw the quarterbacks, including Josh Allen, like eventually just start to really take checkdowns, get the ball out of their hands quicker, because the defense was really, really forcing the issue. So it was definitely a day where the defense had more of the standout moments. I do want to call out a few players that I thought looked really good. Joey Bosa, he has not played a ton of team reps. He did get some teamwork this practice, and he had a clean win against Deion Dawkins for what would be a sack against Josh Allen. Of course, there's no actual sacks in training camp. They're not tackling quarterbacks, but it was certainly an impressive rep against a high caliber tackle in Deion Dawkins. Ed Oliver continues to make his presence known. He was really good yesterday in the run. It was a run heavy day today. You could see him, getting to be more of an attack player, and he was able to really be disruptive. And you could sense he's got a lot of energy with how he's competing out there, and you can't miss his impact. He had a big time tackle for loss and several pressures. I think Greg Rousseau has been terrific. These 5-man pressures really put a guy like him in a good position to maximize his skill set, because he's such a power player that can compress the width of the pocket, and he can really tap into that bull rush and that length to be able to disrupt and compromise the width of the pocket. And I say the same thing about AJ Epinesa. Both guys have been pretty disruptive. Rousseau's been getting his hands on a lot of footballs, batting them up the last couple of days. And so really cage rushing well and affecting these quarterbacks. Shaq Thompson had a sack today, and I'll tell you what, don't sleep on Shaq Thompson. I know we didn't know what to really think of that signing in June as a guy that's on the wrong side of 30 and, back-to-back years of season-ending injuries, right? Was it a broken fibula and an Achilles, like some significant injuries? But he's looked really strong, especially for a guy coming off of an Achilles on the wrong side of 30. You're seeing him, of course, with Terrell Bernard continuing to miss time, getting opportunities with the first team, and whether it's making plays in coverage, as a blitzer, sniffing out the run, Shaq Thompson has had a really, really good start to training camp, and certainly feels like he's going to have something to say about this linebacker depth chart when the Bills have to set their 53-man roster. Matt Milano's been terrific. He was terrific again today. I want to talk about him a little bit more later in today's podcast. But one more thought on the defense is the young defensive lineman. I know that everyone's hungry for thoughts on Deion Walker and Landon Jackson and TJ Sanders. And here's what I can tell you. They're getting a lot of reps. They're all getting off the ball hard. They're hard charging. They're playing with physicality. They're playing with great effort. But, I get one look at these plays from the sideline, and I want to be really honest about what I tell you. And while I am paying a lot of attention to them, I don't know that I have a sample size big enough right now for me to say, hey, these are the techniques that they're working. This is where I think they can make an impact. They're on the field. They're getting opportunity. They're playing hard. But I still think there's more to learn before we start to say, yeah, I think they're on a good path, or, they're struggling or whatnot. I want to make sure that I feel good about that. So I'll pay even more attention on Thursday and, of course, at the Blue Red on Friday. But, I'm paying attention, but I want to make sure that I have good information to share with you. I'm not trying to skirt around it. I'm not telling you that they're looking bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I'm paying attention, but I need to see more to really have an understanding. But I'm really pleased with how they're getting off the ball, how they're being physical, how they're playing with great effort. But, I want to feel a little bit more comfortable before I go in on any stances regarding those players. All right, coming up next, the injuries are piling on. We're going to go through the rundown there, including 2 other players besides Maxwell Harrison that didn't finish the Tuesday practice. So a lot to do here in the next segment. Folks, be sure to stick with me. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions that we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year I'm playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether it's your first league or a veteran in your 1 millionth league. I've used Yahoo Fantasy for years, and I love how smooth the draft day experience is. The setup is easy, the mobile app is awesome, and the smack talk hits a little different in those message boards. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It's all going to begin for you on August 4th. So stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. All right, folks, welcome back. Unfortunately, the injuries are piling on for this football team. Want to go through the list of players that continue to miss practice, players that missed practice for the first time on Tuesday, and the players that didn't finish practice, on Tuesday. And the list is just becoming very, very long. And look, none of this is ideal. And on one hand, you can talk yourself into the Bills being very, very cautious. You know, it's still July. It's a week and a half until a preseason game. There's a lot of time that needs to play out. And so I'm sure a lot of this is the Bills being cautious. In fact, I asked somebody today that is a part of the front office, is, are you being cautious with a lot of these guys? And that was the answer, was yes. But obviously there's varying degrees of severity to all of these situations. And the bottom line is guys are missing reps. And as I've said to you in the past, reps either matter or they don't, and they matter. And you have guy after guy after guy that needs to be out there, whether it's Spencer Brown, who's going to start at right tackle, or Caden Prather, who's battling for a depth role at wide receiver. It's all valuable. Now, the silver lining is that you get reps for other guys, more reps for other guys that maybe didn't anticipate it. And that's all you can really do is celebrate those opportunities. But you got some players here that you're really counting on this year that aren't available. And how many times have we had conversations reflecting back on a player's season, especially a young player, where, you know, maybe it didn't go how we wanted it to, but yeah, they missed all this time in camp and it felt like it was important install time and they missed it. Well, these guys are missing it. So we got to be honest about what's happening here. And there's a lot of injuries. Let's go through the rundown now. These are players that continue to miss practice. Offensive tackle Spencer Brown with the back injury. He is on the field, not in, he's in street clothes. He's engaged in practice, but not doing anything. Center Cedric Van Pran-Granger with a calf injury. Wide receiver Tyrell Shavers with an ankle. Now, that one was a good outcome. Looked bad when he went down a couple days ago, and it's an ankle injury, and multiple coaches have said it's not serious. So that's a win right there. Wide receiver Curtis Samuel, hamstring. Wide receiver Elijah Moore, leg soreness. Wide receiver Caden Prather with a hamstring. That's 4 receivers. Not to mention KJ Hamler missed this practice due to heat-related concerns. 5 receivers you're down. You're watching the Bills offense, and there's reps with Deon Cain and Steven Gosnell out there running receiver with Josh Allen in practices. Tight end Dawson Knox missed with a hamstring. He was on the side catching some passes for a little bit of practice with a helmet on. Feels like he's trending well, but not on the field yet. Now, the good news is Dalton Kincaid did return, so he missed 1 day with some knee soreness, but his absence was just 1 day. Linebacker Terrell Bernard with a hamstring. Again, he's been on the field during install sessions, but in street clothes and not practicing. Dorian Williams with a calf injury, missed again. Here's the new injuries for Tuesday. Dwayne Carter did not practice with an illness. Offensive lineman Alec Anderson missed with a knee. And then I talked about KJ Hamler, heat-related. Mike Edwards, an offensive lineman, heat-related. And then Larry Ogunjobi, a defensive tackle, had a veteran rest day. We mentioned Maxwell Harrison, of course, didn't finish practice. We need to learn more about that situation. And then Ty Johnson didn't finish practice. He ran a play, and he got tackled out of bounds by Joe Andreessen and was attended to afterwards, didn't finish practice. And then Cole Bishop also didn't finish practice. We don't know the severity of either. Now, the good news about Ty Johnson and Cole Bishop is they remained on the practice field in uniform. So that's good news, but the list just keeps piling on. The Bills are off tomorrow, and that feels like a good thing. Like, feels like they need a day off, guys to get some treatment, guys to get some rest, and then assess where this team is from an injury perspective on Thursday. But yeah, I'm not going to try to paint it any other way. There's a lot of guys missing time. It's concerning. Hopefully, a lot of this is being cautious, but even if that's the case, there's reps that are being missed, and they're either valuable or they're not. And guys are missing them pretty frequently right now. So we'll obviously stay tuned with all this, but hopefully the fortunes can change very quickly here, and this team can get ready for the season the way that they expected to. All right, coming up next, I want to talk about some standout plays from the day. I want to talk about some offensive wrinkles that we saw and 5 standout players that I think are under the radar right now. We'll do all that here on the other side of it. Folks, please be sure to stick with me. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days in the golf course or off it can cause you to need a little extra boost to stay sharp and energized. And I've had a lot of great memories playing golf. My favorite golf memory, though, is the first time I broke 100. It was Thanksgiving Day 2014. It was the closing hole was a par 5, and I needed to bogey or better the hole. So I hit my drive, and then I hit my approach shot, and I'm 120 yards away. So I just need to get it on the green and 3-putt, and I would have broke 100. So I go from 120, and I put it within about 12 feet. I 2-putt. I make my sub 100, and I was super happy all about it. And look, golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost that you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. All right, folks, let's get into some of the standout plays from the Tuesday practice, some wrinkles offensively that we saw, and 5 standout players that I think are under the radar in this segment. I have some standout plays I want to call out. Matt Milano made my favorite play of the day. He intercepted Josh Allen, and it was a ball intended for Dalton Kincaid. It was an outbreaking pattern towards the sideline for Dalton Kincaid, and Matt Milano was the underneath zone defender, and he just kept kind of sinking. I think he felt the route behind him and kind of baited Josh into the throw. Josh made the throw. Matt Milano picked it off, and it was a really, really good play for Milano, who has been unbelievable this training camp. Processing quick, flying around, making plays in coverage, blitzing, sniffing out the run. The dude looks phenomenal. Daquan Hardy had an impressive interception off of Mike White. Mike White kind of airmailed one over the middle of the field that didn't look like it was intended for anybody, but credit to Daquan Hardy for seeing the ball, putting himself in position to make a diving interception. Trey White had a great pass breakup. It was a Josh Allen throw intended for Josh Palmer. It's a vertical route. Palmer had a little bit of vertical separation, but Trey White showed his recovery speed and got into the catch point, swatted away the football for a nice play. Josh Allen threw a bomb down the field to Stephen Gosnell, an undrafted free agent rookie out of Virginia Tech. And Gosnell's a guy I'll talk about here in just a moment, but it says something right there that he got a first-team rep with Josh Allen and made the longest completion of the day in this practice. And then Mitch Trubisky hit a bomb to Deion Kane. Deion Kane got loose down the middle of the field. Mitch Trubisky put his whole heart and soul into the throw and got it to him for a big, big gain. Some offensive wrinkles that I was able to observe. The pistol formation was definitely part of this practice. You saw some reps of that where there's, pistol it's shotgun, but then you have a running back behind the quarterback. James Cook was on the field in this particular play, and there was a pistol rep where James Cook was the deep back, and then Reggie Gilliam was on the same level as Josh Allen, and they were able to dial up a run play, which Ed Oliver blew up, but it was kind of fun to kind of see that wrinkle. I continue to see a lot of two-back stuff from this offense, whether it's Cook and Gilliam together or Ty Johnson and Ray Davis. You've seen that pair on the field quite a bit. You saw the Bills run hook and lateral probably 3 different times. Bills aren't much for trick plays. And again, 3 different times it was a hook and lateral, and it kind of made for some fun moments. The success level was varying, but I think the good part is that the execution was clean. There's some risk involved there, and the Bills were able to take care of the football and get some extra yards. Jackson Hawes is a player that has really caught my eye out here. He's as advertised. You knew he would be a good blocker. He is. You could tell that he's a tone setter. Rob Boris and him, there's a lot of energy between those guys. Rob Boris is the Bills' tight ends coach. So Jackson Hawes has been as advertised as a blocker, but he's definitely getting a lot of opportunity right now. Obviously, Dawson Knox hasn't practiced, and Kincaid missed yesterday. So he's had a lot of first-team reps along with Zach Davidson. And what excites me about Jackson Hawes is that he's had some contributions in the passing game. He's been able to not necessarily get down the field and make plays, but some shallow drags, some sit routes, some bench routes. He's been able to handle that stuff. And I think that's important. Like, if he can come in and be the impact blocker, but then have just a baseline receiving contribution, I think that'll help his role quite a bit. And then the last player I wanted to kind of mention here is Khalil Shakir. I don't want to take for granted that we know he's a good football player. Like, he's having good practices. And what excites me about Khalil Shakir is, of course, we know he's good yards after catching the short, in the short stuff. But in this practice, at least, when it was 3rd and longs, you saw more of an emphasis for him to get down the field. Some of those slot fades, some of those outbreakers down the field has been cool to see, because that, for as awesome as Khalil Shakir was last year, I thought the Bills were kind of missing getting him involved more down the field, and we saw that happen a lot more in this practice. I mentioned that there were 5 players that I wanted to shout out that I think are a little under the radar, that I think have caught my eye. I don't want to get too crazy here or overstate this, but guys that I don't think are getting much attention that I think deserve some recognition. The first one is wide receiver Stephen Gosnell, undrafted free agent out of Virginia Tech. And I remember the first day that I was at practice on Sunday, he got like one random first team rep. And I'm like, who is on the field with Josh Allen? Like, if Josh Allen's on the field and players are with him, that means something. And it was like one play, and I didn't think much of it, but I filed it away. And then he got a little bit more opportunity on Monday, and you thought to yourself, well, the Bills are short a bunch of receivers. Maybe he's just getting opportunity. And then it happens again today. And again, the Bills are short receivers, but he's getting opportunity. And when the backups were in, Mike White and Mitch Trubisky, they love throwing the ball to Stephen Gosnell. And then you saw Josh Allen uncork the bomb to him in this practice. And it's like, oh, maybe there's something here, something worth paying attention to. And he's fielding punts, and he just feels like he's going to be a thing this preseason. I don't think there's a path for him to make this roster. But in a world where, it's been like Brandon Riley has been a preseason darling, or guys like Christian Wade or Antonio Williams, Raheem Blackshear, Derek Rogers, there's always Tanner Gentry, Andy Isabella. There's always like these preseason darlings. Don't be surprised when you come out of this preseason and Stephen Gosnell is your favorite under the radar player. Travis Clayton's a player I want to shout out, the rugby player, 7th round pick in 23 International Pathway Program. Here's what I'll say about Travis Clayton. There are times where you watch him and he looks like a guy that's never really played football, but there are also good reps too. And he's getting a lot of one-on-one opportunities. And like I said, it's not all great, but the fact that he's holding his head above water is meaningful at times. And if he gets on the field in preseason, that's going to say a lot, because, and I've had this conversation with an NFL offensive line coach, your preseason games, you got to make sure that you can function as an offense. There's times where you could put an offensive lineman in there that just won't allow your offense to function. And so if Clayton gets on the field during preseason, that's going to mean a lot. So we'll file that one away and pay attention. Wande Owens, undrafted free agent safety, he's definitely caught my eye. He was the most appealing undrafted free agent that the Bills added, and I think he's kind of lived up to that so far. Very intentional player, physical, athletic, had a big click and close hit in this practice. You watch him on teams, he competes hard. When he has a chance to fill and play the run, he's very intentional. And so he's kind of stood out to me. I don't know if there's a path for him to make this roster, but practice squad, developmental plan, you could see something coming of him. He's definitely intriguing. Casey Rogers is a defensive tackle that's on the Bills. Really like his demeanor. He doesn't have a great build, but he's got a dense frame. He's very athletic. His get off, his intentionality, the fight that he brings to every snap is something that catches my attention at least. And then I also want to shout out Zion Logue. Was on the Bills 53 for a little bit last year, was on the practice squad for most of the year, was a draft pick by the Falcons out of Georgia. And first things first, like the body composition looks really, really good. Looks like a guy that is designed to play one tech in the NFL. Like you love the way he looks, not a lot of bad weight on the frame. But also you can tell there's a lot of intentionality with what he's doing on the field, playing with some good competitive demeanor, firm at the point of attack. He's definitely a player that I have seen a lot of growth compared to what I watched last year to the player he is this year. So those are some guys that are under the radar that I'm curious to monitor the rest of the way, really see in preseason games, and then just kind of pay attention to that developmental arc moving forward as guys that could be on the practice squad that become something for this team, which we've seen a number of guys do that. So those are some guys worth paying attention to. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. A lot to do this week. The Bills are off tomorrow, but we'll have a pod for you. Thursday, we'll have Bills Squad, where we'll reflect on what we see on the field Thursday. Friday, I'm going to be at the Blue-Red scrimmage at Highmark, and I'll give you a podcast after that as well. So plenty still to come here on Locked On Bills. Don't miss anything. Make sure that you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. Look forward to catching up with you again real soon.